You're all very welcome to session 4, the role of the frontline staff, which covers learning outcome 5. The aim of this session is to support you to understand the role of the frontline social care worker. It will also support you to be able to define the term frontline worker, and this session will support learners to achieve learning outcome 5. You will be able to define the term frontline staff, and this will be tested in the exam. I would like you to follow the links to frontline job vacancies to view the roles. The roles include nursing staff, staff nurse in residential services, activities coordinator, healthcare personnel, support workers, assistant support worker and care social worker, and care staff. And you will be able to see the roles and responsibilities of these personnel to understand their position in the role of caring for people with intellectual disabilities. And in your discussion forum, I would like you to outline the key duties of the advertised post. And these links will be posted on Moodle for you. In addition, we are now going to watch this link, and we're going to see how do these frontline staff describe their role? What issues do they discuss? And then we will continue and compare it with other frontline staff.
I think the most important thing that I do in my job is to empower people.
It is their human right to access what they want and not be held back because of staffing issues or lack of funding.
The main attribute needed to work in the ID sector, I would think, is patience, and probably more patience.
When you go in the doors of your workplace and somebody that you're supporting for the day, a service user, looks and there's a big wide smile. They mightn't use words, but their smiles and their gestures, you know that you're appreciated for the work that you do.
I think generally people who work in intellectual disability hate unfairness. They hate, seeing people not getting a fair shot at things, and I think that's part of what drives them.
A lot of my job would be building self-confidence and finding opportunities for what service users want to do. Everyone is an individual and they all have dreams.
So I've been working in residential. It's a 24/7 service. It's basically somebody's home. 2 gentlemen live there. One individual is profoundly deaf as well as having an intellectual disability. So really, I suppose a typical day is just to help them to lead as good a life within their home and in the community as possible.
We try and encourage the people that we work with to use their own form of communication, whether it's pictures, whether it's sign language. Our role would be to take it a step back and make sure that their voice is heard in whatever form that they can express themselves.
I've been here for the last going on 17 years. I enjoy the work. It is very, very important for people with disabilities to have a job, have self-worth and believe in themselves.
We're always left behind in funding. 0-hour contracts being huge. People can't get mortgages, can't do anything really. They don't know if they're coming or going. It's really difficult work and it's long hours, and people on low wages, 0-hour contracts get very disheartened and end up leaving.
Service users have said to us that it's very, very important that the people that support them, they're consistently coming in. They build a relationship with staff. Staff know their likes, they know their needs, they know when they need quiet time, they know when they need to go out and about and meet friends. I think it's very important that there is permanent jobs in our sector and that they can develop and build the skills of people that we support and work on independent living skills to help people access their community.
If we didn't have the trade union, I think that there would have been privatisation everywhere already, especially the Section 39s would not have the level they have right now. Even when I started in my new place, to get a contract is basically unheard of. I was very lucky, and I think that was the union's strength, helped that, to walk into a contracted job instead of a 0-hour contract.
Trust and care is agreed between the unions and the employers as the only way forward in terms of complaints and procedures. If there's to be changes made, it should be certainly done inclusively, including unions who've agreed to it, employers who've agreed to it. The assault in the workplace, we actually don't have a policy, and I certainly think that there should be a standardised assault policy.
You're not going to walk in as a staff member in ID sector and say there's no issues. You're going to have an issue probably a week in because you're going to be upset by the fact that there's no funding. Why can't I do my job? Well, there's no funding. You know, there's going to be issues, and the only way we can fight this is by getting our voice heard, and the only way we're going to get our voice heard is by being part of the union and SIPTU getting our message out there.
I think it's very important that we come together to make sure that we're treated with respect and dignity and equality within our job.
So that was a very poignant short clip, but it showed how, I suppose, the importance of valuing frontline staff is to promoting professionalism within the sector. These frontline staff describe their roles as being of paramount importance to the people that they work with and support. And it's interesting to see the types of issues that they do discuss. And this is something for you to consider and take note of yourselves. And you will be writing up on frontline staff within your assignments. So take some notes that are relevant to you in this. And we'll now compare this with a second YouTube clip that shows how other frontline staff describe their roles.
The most important skills and attitudes that you need to be a good disability support worker, a lot of them are, at the end of the day, are fairly basic. You know, really it requires a lot of common sense. You have to be very patient, you have to be very open-minded to other people's opinions and views. You need to be very focused on the fact that at the end of the day you are an advocate for a client. It's absolutely vital that you function well as a member of a team where you're open to each other's opinions, criticisms, whatever.
The role isn't about fulfilling your own needs. I think that the most important thing is about empowering people and giving them the power to have as much choice and decision making as possible in their life.
Another one of important skills would be, I'd say, you know, active support, letting independence, allowing the people you work with to be as independent as possible, not to take over.
Each client is an individual, and the skills you need is to be flexible and fit into a client's needs. And all we're doing as a support worker is to make sure that they have a free and independent life.
seeing kind of things happen every day when like different achievements happen, like a smile on a client's face or achieving something for the first time which they haven't achieved. That's just the best thing, or even kind of like going on a holiday with somebody who's never been on a holiday in their life or something like that. That's just really important. So from all those angles, it's really fulfilling. Sometimes when the lack of staff teamwork gets in the way of what you're supposed to be doing, and that's working to meet the goals of the clients and the clients' needs.
It's not the best paid job, of course, but it's fulfilling and rewarding. If your heart is in it, you'll get the contentment out of assisting another human being. The flexibility of the hours also is a positive. It's very easy to overstep boundaries, and if you're not aware of what the boundaries are, and there's a very fine line, you can't overstep boundaries. You can get stressed because you've overstepped the boundaries and got too involved with the client's lifestyle. Also, as a disability support worker, we need to be open to the different cultures. Where things like health and safety issues come in, I don't think there needs to be any real change to adapt to a culture.
As a support worker, you need to be aware of such things as people's religious beliefs and respect those, and ensure that if that client's wanting to practice the, basically that religion, that you take steps to basically do that, even though your beliefs may be different, because you have to remember the fact that you're in a workplace. And that can often involve a lot of the time, as a support worker, you organising an interpreter to come in on those meetings, and that's important. If not an interpreter, sometimes what's also good is a family member who can speak very good English as well, but also basically will speak a couple of languages.
There's been situations where, parents have come over and said, oh, this medication is really good for my daughter, and you're like, well, I'm sorry, it's got your name on it, I really can't accept it, and trying then to, show them awareness of my duty of care to their daughter, and, you just can't do it. We've got, laws that we have to abide by, and those have been a challenge. I think it's different for every person, every situation. I have the ability to switch off when I go home. Issues that may upset you to do with staff, if a client's ill, or like we had a death years ago here at the house, and that was quite stressful. And those things, the organisation provides debriefing on, things like that.
Managing stress and remaining positive is very important for a support worker working in any setting. It's important really that you get a balance between your work and your home life. Managing that stress, a lot of things can be done to help with that. I think a certain level of physical fitness is important. You need to have other interests outside of work, no matter what they may be, whether they be social interests, sporting interests, or whatever. Even if it's just spending time with your family, that's vital as well. A lot of incidents that occur at a workplace can be very, very stressful, and in that situation, you need to know when you need support as a worker, and you need to speak up about the fact that you are getting stressed, because if you don't, over a period of time, that stress can accumulate to the point where you may basically just leave your work. And over a period of time as well, if you are becoming more stressed, you're not going to be any good to the clients that you're assisting, and you're not going to be any good to the team you're working with.
Issues that I faced in working as a sole worker in the community, as indifferent to working in the house with other staff, would have to be things around personal space and people's private space in their own homes. I think in those situations it's really important to have some support from higher management so that you have some clear boundaries about what is and isn't acceptable or appropriate, and some clear guidelines as to what your objectives are in meeting that person and what you're hoping to achieve with them.
Could be issues of who the carer is answerable to, where the client may be requiring a certain sort of care or want something done in a particular way, and then the family member may come up and say, now we do it this way, or we've done it this way for so many years, so this is how we do it.
We all have our standards in our own home as to what we think is appropriate, what's clean, what's nice. And it's very hard as a worker not to inflict your opinions and views onto other people about, I mean, especially in the home where I work with deafblind people, people who are blind don't need you moving their stuff around. They need to know where it is.
There are a few issues. It's important to remember that it is their home, that you are the worker coming into their home. Yeah. You don't take over. Other issues that you face is families expect you to do things for them also. You know, situations have occurred where you might drop off the client to visit their family and they'll say to you, oh, can you fill this form out for me? Or, you know, can you write this cheque out for me? Can you pay this bill for me? Can you take me up the road to the shops? And you're like, oh, I'm sorry.
How flexible are you then?
It's difficult because, you know, you do want to help families, but your role is actually to care for their child.
Privacy and confidentiality is a huge issue in the workplace and when you're doing your role as a support worker. In a house setting, for example, it can come down to a basic thing in relation to privacy, such as making sure that you assist someone to close the door behind them and they have privacy in their own room, or privacy kind of like if they're having a bath or a shower, that people don't walk in there. As a support worker, we need to know a fair bit about a client's history, but we don't necessarily need to know everything. And we certainly don't go communicating it to other people who work in a totally different setting. If you work in a day service or you work in a particular house, you don't go talking or gossiping to other people who work in another house or another day service about what a client's doing. If it's not relevant to them, you just don't do it, and that's just really important. It's also important as well that in relation to what you're writing about a client, if a client obviously can understand writing and whatever, that you really, where possible, you talk to them about what you're writing. It's important. So if you're writing stuff in a client's file notes, that they will understand, you need to go through it and explain it to that client. Because ultimately it's those clients' notes and they have every right to read those notes that you write about them. That's why the notes you write need to be professionally written. They can't be subjective, they need to be objective and factual.
Stand and spin. Okay, can you come forward? Nina, up stand, come forward. Good girl, and you sit. Okay, there we go. Good girl, stay there, okay?
Have you ever tried to...
So when we looked at the frontline staff describing their roles, it was all around professional boundaries, the importance of confidentiality, the importance of working as a team if you're in a care setting or a congregated setting in a care home, and also around the professional boundaries if you're working as a one-on-one in a client's home. And it's very important that we bear this in mind. We have a professional job to do. We are going to work. We can't inflict our ideas or our standards on somebody else. It was very interesting to see about the importance of privacy when you're talking about the activities of daily living. So we have to be mindful of this in our roles as healthcare workers or as community support workers. So this is just for yourself. I want you to research a definition for frontline staff and explain what this term means in the field of intellectual disabilities. Give examples of the roles and responsibilities of frontline staff who work with individuals with intellectual disabilities. And you can post your response to the discussion forum, and I will provide feedback on these responses. Okay? So thank you very much for your attention. And I am very happy to work with you on this. If you have any queries or questions, please make sure that you contact me. You can email me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So I hope that you have enjoyed Learning Outcome 4 and Learning Outcome 5, and I look forward to meeting you at the next webinar. Thanks very much for your attention.